Hi, this is Dan here. I hope you're doing really well today. Look, whether you have just started bass, you're coming back to it after years away, or you're intermediate, technique is everything on bass to make you feel comfortable. We're going to go through all things fingerstyle technique, and there's a lot. Now, I'm going to start off with a boring exercise, but don't worry, it does get more exciting. If you just take that, as I said, there are so many things going on. So let's go from the fretting hand first. What you want to do is to curl your fingers so that they can press down on the fingertips right next to the fret. So we've got 9, 10, 11, 12. I'll just talk fret numbers. This is on the G string. We're aiming to work on finger independence, a stretch between the fingers, and placing our hands and, well, our fingers in the correct place. You don't need to get a ruler out for this. It doesn't need to be exact, but something like this. My videography skills are so bad. I tried to set up a camera and I couldn't. So here's a bit of bad B-roll. And what I will do is just try to explain where you need to put your thumb. So at the back of the neck, roughly behind where your second finger is, that's where you want your thumb. Now, as we go from a higher to a lower string, can you see I'm exaggerating the movement, but I'm just moving my thumb. It's staying at the back of the neck. I'm just moving it this way to get those fingers to more easily fret on the E string. This is called one finger per fret, where you have your first finger, in this case lined up on the 9th fret, and then the second next to it, third next to that, fourth next to that. Really working on the stretch between those fingers. If you're able to do so, if you don't have any injuries or arthritis, let's aim for that, especially using that little finger. If you play something that's fast, you're probably going to need that little finger. Speaking of fast, and if this is new to you, ignore what I just did. Just go as slow as you need to. Let's introduce that plucking hand. So we're going to pluck with index and middle fingers. If I'm on the G string, I will sometimes just rest my thumb on the A string, just back onto the E, and those are now muted. Muting is a really big part of playing bass. Boring technique, but we need to clean things up. So when you're plucking that first note, you use your index, you pluck with the fingertip. Let's get nice and close in here so you can see this. That's the sort of movement you want. If we stick to that one note, index, middle, alternate plucking, that's called. I got a buzz there. I wasn't looking. You want to be fretting right behind the fret, the 9th fret in this case. If you're too far the other side, you get that. You want to avoid that at all costs. You do not need to press down hard to achieve this note. It does nothing apart from tiring you out and choking the tone. Aim for a nice light touch here. That's where I'm playing, right there on the fingertip. The finger is quite curled. You see, there's that thumb at the back, the wrist as straight as possible, also holding the bass. I'll get onto that in a minute, actually. I'm plucking and resting on the next string. That's called a rest stroke. And all I'm doing here, and actually just stopping here and just doing this over and over. I'm going to stay here. I know this is boring, but stick with me. There are better exercises coming up. It's all about getting that stamina, getting that speed, getting that coordination going. You must do it slowly. You must be consistent. Do this every day. It will come together, I promise. When plucking, don't do that unless that's the tone you want to go for. It's kind of a slap thing. Or a chord thing. When you're playing like this, where you're plucking, you will be most of the time. We're aiming for that finger coming through nice, resting on here, and get that fat tone. Experiment with where you pluck. Get a tighter, funkier sound here. And a fuller tone here. That's what we're listening for and wanting, is a good tone. No buzzers. We want the note to sing. You'll notice I'm doing different things with my thumb. If I'm playing on the G and the D strings, I'm muting on the A string. But as soon as I need that A string, I have to come off it. So I might mute on the E string and then come off that. So this is the coordination part of this. This doesn't happen overnight. This happens with regular, consistent practice. We're aiming for an even tone, and we're aiming for no speeding up or slowing down or jumps in volume. Let's play a slightly more exciting exercise talking about the same things. So here it is. We would just repeat that. More or less a major scale with some other stuff going in, but who cares what it is? Just read the tab. You can download all this stuff for free down below, by the way. We're still one finger per fret. This is a great time to talk about holding the bass. When I do these lessons, I don't play with a strap attached to the bass. If that feels better for you to use the strap, do it. If it feels better to stand up, do it. I quite like sitting down and playing. I've done loads of gigs where you sit down, and I've developed, the way a lot of people do it. So I've got the cutaway here on my right leg. And this is important. The neck is going up, and I'm pushing it away from the back of the chair so that I don't have to grab hold of the bass at all with my fretting hand. That's so important. The neck is just here like this, and I can move up and down. In fact, you can see the wrist just holding things there. If I let go, it's going to go somewhere. Okay, so that's the way I'm doing it. You see people putting this part on the left leg as well, and just playing a bit more like a classical guitarist. Sort of this kind of thing. You can experiment with this. The neck is just there. It's facing upwards, and you're just free to fly around. Not the way I do it, but feel free to experiment and find the way that works for you. Let me play that one more time very slowly. I find that when most people are getting technique together, they'll look at this hand a lot, and this one is getting away with murder. Make sure that you are alternating your fingers the whole time. I mean, you don't have to be so accurate with that, because as you come this way, you can use one finger to drag or rake down the strings. That's no problem. As long as what you're playing sounds good and you can play it up to speed and with no pain, then that's good. We're aiming for clean note transitions. So you've got to be careful with your fretting. If you're not, you can get this kind of thing. So, well, even if you just stay on the G, and if you come up off the G, you'll hear that the finger will make the string vibrate, and you don't want that. So sometimes you can control that with what your plucking hand is doing, like the thumb muting the string. Other times, you just want to be very careful when fretting and coming off a note. That's this thing of taking a microscope up to your technique and just being very slow and intentional with it and making sure you're catching everything. I think play with an amp or through speakers so you can hear what's going on. So this bit here, when I'm playing, actually all my fingers are staying down and they control the string. But as soon as my first finger needs to play the next note, well, actually a little bit before I move it. So it's like this one finger in the future thing. So watch what happens when my little finger plays the 12th fret of the D string. The first finger was already on its way. Watch that again. Now watch the first finger. It's there already. The same can be said for the plucking hand fingers. Index, middle, index, middle, index. Okay? Don't be so rigidly attached. You need to be moving, and you can use the thumb here as a pivot as well. And if you watch the way I play, and if you watch the way lots of other bass players play, you'll see differences, slight differences. I'm not saying this is the way you have to do it. You will find your own way. As long as you feel comfortable with the bass in your hands, and as long as you can play fast with no pain, it's all good. Let's have a look at this exercise and explore things a bit more. We've got lots of open strings here, and frets 10 to 12, okay? So let me play the whole of the first line. I want you to just pay attention to the thumb at the back of the neck. The wrist is as straight as possible, and I've got no timing source. I'm just going to play nice and easy. So the thumb is at the back of the neck, roughly this hand position. The first finger is ready and waiting for the 10th fret, the G, and the third finger is ready and waiting for the A on the 12th fret. You're hovering just above. Don't have your hand anywhere else, and then you have to suddenly get there. Have it all ready to go. Then you can go to D and do the same thing. Back to the A string. E. This is it all the way through. I'm going to put a drum beat in the background to stay in time. Now, if you're not quite that level yet where you can't play to the drum beat, then don't do it. Just do it without timing. And if you don't have any drum loops, I'll put this in the free download as well. So it's about anticipating where you're going next and making sure a finger's ready to go there. If you've got alternate plucking working for you, then you can do that. You can get the finger ready for the next string, and same thing here. One thing we haven't done yet is to shift into different positions on the bass, and that happens all the time. You do not have to use one finger per fret the whole time. In fact, if you watch lots of really great bass players, they'll be going, just using one finger, and then maybe using a little finger there instead of the third, and all kinds of things go on. But do work on that one finger per fret. Here is the exercise with hand shifts, with no drums. In fact, you can see here, I'm choosing to use my little finger for that note here. So we've got an F on the 3rd fret of the D string, and then 2 frets across and 1 string across is a 5th. That's an interval of a 5th. And we're using that all the way. And instead of using the 1st finger and then 3rd finger, which you can do, by the way, it's not wrong, I use my little finger there, and the wrist stretches a bit less. Let's try it with the drums. You can play along. The fingers are maintaining this hand position. My thumb is in contact with the back of the neck, and it's just really a confident and quick movement that you need to make. It's right at the last second you're moving. That kind of hand shift thing, you really want to work on that, because lots of bass lines do that. Let's develop that exercise by working on our plucking hand fingers. These are the rhythm generators on bass. So we can use the same notes in the same order and just do a bit more with these fingers to generate some kind of cool bass lines. 1, 2, 3, 4. You heard the effect of it sounding faster. The fretting hand was not really doing anything different. It was just moving with that sort of hand shape. These were the fingers doing all the work there. So you could just take any of those notes and just practice. You don't need to constantly have exercises or to be looking at YouTube lessons. You could be thinking, okay, well, I know that pattern now. I know this thing of alternate plucking. Well, let's just work on that. So index, middle, alternate plucking going on there, rest strokes going on there, thumb on the A string. As soon as the middle finger plucks, the first finger, or the index finger, is ready for that G string, for that note on the 9th fret. The fretting hand fingers control the note length a lot of the time. So if you play 9th fret G string, the note sustains for as long as you press it down. Come up, it stops. When I come up there, I still maintain contact with the string. Watch this, I'll bring this right up. Not doing that. If you come away from the string, you get a note. So this is part of muting and clean, controlled technique. You will notice that up to this point, I've spoken about actually lots and lots of things, and I hope it doesn't put you off. Don't forget, you can rewatch this lesson. No one said playing bass is easy. Well, actually, loads of people do. They make jokes about it, don't they? But it isn't really. There's lots of intricate technical things that you need to do, including being careful with your fretting. This final exercise deals with some string crossing or string skipping and a few jumps with your plucking hand. There are loads of ways that you can approach this in terms of what fingers to use on the fretting hand. None is right or wrong, but there's one way. In fact, let me do the possibly easiest way first. So first finger, I'm using little finger here, and then first finger here, and that's it for everything. Or you can use your third finger. See how I'm being careful coming off the notes so that nothing rings out. I'm also sort of holding the strings here, that's muting. Or I could do this. I could use my first finger to play both the notes that are on that 7th fret. This would be my preferred option. You see where that knuckle is there? There's a crease behind it, and that's where I'm fretting. And I'm rolling. This would be definitely a more advanced technique, but that's how you would play stuff like this really fast. No way my first finger is getting from there to there and back again without doing this. Or you could go slightly unconventional, but first finger, little finger, second finger. Do make sure that you create your own exercises and your own lines. Don't be reliant on YouTube teachers or books or courses. I show you 3 notes, that one, and that one. Memorize that pattern and challenge yourself to see how fast you can get from one note to the other. These are octaves, by the way. First finger or index finger to middle finger. So the shorter finger to the longer finger. See, they're sort of naturally there. That's a string skip. And here, you've got to do the same. Make sure you're on the correct notes. It's all coordination. Let's play that one with the drum loop. I think technique is so important. You can't play a gig if you don't have the right stamina for it. There are loads of bass lines you can't play if your fingers aren't moving quick enough. It'll sound bad, timing will be off. Timing is also very linked to technique. So this is something you have to take seriously. This is a very short lesson. As I said, probably some of it was too fast, but you can go back to the lesson and you can go to the blog post and you can have a look at my other lessons. And this is really what it's all about. Once you get your technique together, you will feel free and bass playing will feel easier. And that will be a great position to get to. If you have any technique questions or have any follow-up ideas for lessons, get involved in the comments below. I read all of them. I reply to all of them. So do that right now. Tell me how you're getting on. Thanks very much for watching. I'll see you on the next lesson.